I bartended at a small dive on the edge of town, dim lights, cracked vinyl booths, a jukebox that hadn't worked since 2012. The kind of place where the regulars outnumber the tourists and nobody uses last names. Shift after my brother moved out of state. Said I could use the cash and the solitude. I didn't mind, at least not at first. There was this guy who came in every night, always around 9 p.m. sharp. Everyone just called him the regular. No one ever said his name, and I never asked. Tall guy, maybe mid-50s, weathered skin, clean nails. Always sat in the same corner stool, second from the jukebox. Never talked to anyone except me. Drink was always the same. Double rye whiskey, no ice, no conversation. For the first couple of weeks it was fine. He'd show up, drink 2 or 3, leave cash on the bar, and disappear into the dark. He never looked drunk, never caused trouble, but something about him always made me uneasy. He never blinked when he spoke. He didn't seem to listen to the music or even glance at the TV, just stared at the back wall like he was watching something no one else could see. One night around mid-December, I had the bar mostly to myself. Snow falling outside, the kind that muffles everything. The regular came in, sat down, ordered the usual. I poured his drink and noticed he had a bandage on his knuckles, dried blood soaked through the gauze. I made a joke about bar fights. He didn't smile, just said, "Wasn't a fight, just something that had to be done." I didn't ask more, didn't want to know, but that was the first night he stayed. It's past closing. Normally he left before 11:30, like clockwork. But that night, I was sweeping the floor around 12:10, and he was still there, silent, glass in hand, staring ahead. I said, "Hey man, we're closed." He didn't move. I walked over cautiously. When I got close, he turned and looked at me. "You ever feel like someone followed you home?" he asked. His voice was dry, brittle, like leaves in winter. Like they're just ... waiting outside. I didn't know what to say. I half-laughed, trying to break the mood. "Bad date." "No," he said, "not a date. Just someone I shouldn't have looked in the eye." He left a few minutes later, leaving more cash than he owed. I didn't sleep well that night. From that night on, things got strange. He'd show up earlier and leave later. Sometimes I'd look up from washing glasses and catch him staring at me, no expression, like he was trying to memorize my face. He started asking personal questions. Where I lived, if I lived alone, if I locked my doors. All in that same flat tone, like he was checking items off a list. I started dreading the clock hitting 9. One night, during a rare busy Friday, he came in and stood behind a young woman at the bar for a solid 5 minutes. Not talking, just standing too close. She noticed, turned around, and moved away. I told him he couldn't do that. He said nothing, just nodded, and went to his usual stool. That night, he didn't order a drink. He just sat and watched people, too. Days later, the same woman came back and told me someone had followed her to her car that night. She didn't see who it was, just footsteps behind her in the parking lot. She got in and locked the doors in time. I said nothing. The next day I told my manager I was taking some time off. He didn't ask questions. That's the kind of place it was. I locked all my doors that night. I even moved a chair in front of the window, but still, at 9 p.m. sharp, I heard footsteps in the snow outside my apartment. Slow. Deliberate. I live on the 2nd floor. There's no reason for footsteps to stop directly beneath my window unless someone knows I'm up here. I turned off all the lights and sat in the dark holding a kitchen knife like an idiot. I waited for the footsteps to go away. They didn't. They just ... stopped. No knock, no voice, no movement. Just silence for hours. When I finally got the nerve to look, the snow was untouched. No footprints. I haven't gone back to the bar. I moved last month, didn't tell anyone where, left my phone number behind, no forwarding address. But every night, just before 9, my dog starts pacing the floor, growling low in his throat. He stares at the window, tail stiff, ears flattened, and sometimes I swear, I hear a quiet knock at the door. No one's ever there. I was 22 and driving across the country alone. Heading west after college with everything? I owned packed into the back of my old Honda. I didn't have a real plan, just a job offer in Oregon and enough savings to get me there if I stuck to. Cheap motels and gas station meals. On the third night, somewhere in Nebraska, I hit a wall of exhaustion. I'd been driving for 12 hours, and my GPS was useless in the middle of nowhere. I spotted a flickering neon sign off a side road. Pine View Motel vacancy. It looked old, but decent enough, one of those single-floor, U-shaped places with numbered doors and a cracked ice machine near the office. I pulled in and left the engine running. The lot was completely empty except for a beat-up pickup near the end of the row. The office lights were on, but the place felt off, too quiet. Like even the insects weren't making noise. Inside, the manager was an old woman in a faded pink sweater, hunched over a crossword puzzle. Her hair was too neat for someone running a place like this. She didn't smile when I walked in. "Room for one," I said. She slid a key across the counter without looking up. "Room 6. No smoking." "Stay in your room after dark," she muttered. Her voice was hoarse, like she hadn't spoken to anyone in days. "If you hear anything, don't open the door." I blinked. What kind of anything? She finally looked at me. Her eyes were watery, gray, and tired. "Just don't." I laughed nervously. "You always say that to customers?" She didn't answer. Room 6 was at the far end, next to the woods. The room smelled like bleach and old curtains. One double bed. A small desk. A bathroom with a flickering overhead light. The kind of place you expect to find a dead cockroach or a weird stain on the carpet, but it was clean and cheap. It's all I cared about. I took a shower, microwaved a gas station, burrito, and crawled into bed with a book. Around 10:30 p.m. I started to drift off. I'd just turned out the light when I heard it. 3 slow knocks on the door. Knock, knock, knock. I froze. The knocks weren't loud, almost hesitant. Like whoever was there wasn't sure if they wanted to be. I waited, heart hammering. No voice followed. No footsteps walking away. I sat up and looked through the PEEPHO. Led nothing. Just the empty parking lot under a sickly yellow light. I told myself it was probably the manager checking in or some confused traveler. I turned back toward the bed. Another knock. Still soft. Still slow. I checked again. No one. But something was wrong this time. The pickup truck from earlier. Gone. I sat back down and tried to calm my breathing. Maybe I'd imagined the second knock. Maybe I was just tired. Then I heard a sound I'll never forget. The rustling of plastic right outside my window, followed by something dragging along the wall. Slow, deliberate, like nails on stucco. Then a voice. Soft, almost childlike. "Let me in?" I stopped breathing. It was right outside. A whisper. Not angry. Not threatening. Just pleading. "Let me in. Just for a minute." I backed away from the window, holding my phone and shaking hands, thinking I should call someone. But call who? The cops? The old woman in the office? I checked the lock again. Deadbolt, chain, both on. My car keys were in my bag, too far to reach without crossing in front of the window. I didn't dare. The dragging sound came again, then a low thump against the wall, like someone leaning their head against it. I'm cold. The voice sounded closer, like it had moved toward the door. I waited, gripping the base of the lamp like a weapon. I wanted to shout, tell them to go away, but I couldn't make a sound. My body refused. Then, silence. I waited 10 minutes. Then 20. Nothing. I finally worked up the nerve to peek through the peephole again. Still nothing. But this time, there was a shadow on the concrete just outside the door. It wasn't moving, but I knew it hadn't been there before. It looked like someone was standing just outside the frame, too far to see, but close enough to cast a shape. And then the doorknob turned. Just a slow test of the lock, a careful rattle. The chain jumped slightly. I stayed awake until sunrise, sitting on the bed with the lamp in my hands, too scared to move. When the first light hit the window, I finally looked outside. The shadow was gone. There's no one there. I threw everything in my car and peeled out of the parking lot without checking out. As I passed the office, I saw the old woman watching me through. The blinds not surprised, not worried, just waiting. It wasn't until I stopped for gas an hour later that I realized something. Room 6. It didn't face the parking lot. It faced the woods. There's no concrete walkway outside that window. No reason for footsteps. No place for someone to stand. I still don't know what I heard, but I know it was real, and I've never stayed at another roadside motel since. I moved into the apartment on a Tuesday. It was my first place alone, no roommates, no family, just me and a few boxes of secondhand furniture. The building wasn't much, just a 3-story walk-up in an aging part of town. The paint was peeling, the hall lights flickered, and the walls were thin enough to hear a neighbor sneeze. But the rent was cheap, and after a rough breakup, I needed space. My unit was to be. The one directly below me, 1B, was supposedly vacant. The landlord said the old tenant moved out months ago. Didn't leave a forwarding address, he told me. Already halfway down the stairs. Place is locked up tight. So I didn't think much of it the first night when I heard movement downstairs. Just a few thumps, like furniture shifting. I figured the landlord was doing some maintenance, or someone was checking on the place. It stopped quickly. The second night. I heard it again around midnight. Thump. Then a soft scraping sound, like something being dragged across the floor. I pressed my ear to the hardwood. It's definitely coming from below. But it didn't last long. The third night was different. I was lying in bed when I heard it, not thumping, not scraping, pacing slow, steady footsteps back and forth, back and forth. The exact rhythm of someone walking across a room, turning, walking back. It went on for hours. I tried calling the landlord the next day, but he didn't pick up. I left a message asking if someone had moved in downstairs. No response. That night, the pacing started again. I stood in the middle of my floor and stomped hard, hoping they'd hear and stop. They didn't. If anything, it grew louder, closer. Like they were walking directly underneath me now, following my movements. The next day, I knocked on 1B's door. No answer. I leaned in and listened. Nothing. I started to walk away. But then I noticed something. The peephole in the door there was light coming from inside. Just a sliver, barely visible, but there. If the unit was supposed to be vacant, why was there a light on? That night I put a glass of water on the floor and sat beside it, watching the surface. Around 12:30 a.m., the ripples started. Very faint, in time with the footsteps. Back and forth. Back and forth. I didn't sleep. A few days later, I ran into my upstairs neighbor in the hallway. She was maybe in her late 50s, with sharp eyes and a cigarette-stained voice. "You in to be?" she asked. "Yeah, you've heard it then." Blinked. "Heard what?" She gave me a look. 1B. "What about it?" She stepped closer, lowered her voice. "There's someone down there. Has been for weeks." But the landlord said. She shook her head. The landlord lies. The last guy who lived there? He had problems. Kept to himself. Always wore gloves, even in summer. Used to watch people through the mail slot. One night, he just disappeared. Left everything behind. Cops never found him. Do you think he came back? She lit a cigarette right there in the hallway. "I think someone's in there. But it's not him." I didn't ask what she meant. The next night, I turned off all the lights and lay on the floor with my ear pressed down. Midnight came. Then the footsteps. But this time, they weren't pacing. They were moving in a circle. Around and around, faster than before. The floorboards creaked with every step. I could hear breathing, deep, slow, wet, like someone breathing through their mouth too close to a wall. Then it stopped, a long silence, and then, right beneath me, a voice. "I see you." I scrambled off the floor and turned on every light in the apartment. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I sat on the couch with a bat I'd used for softball, shaking, listening for anything. In the morning, I went down to 1B. The door was open. Just a crack. I pushed it with the bat and peeked inside. It was empty. No furniture. No lights. Just dust and bare walls. But the air was heavy, thick with the smell of mildew and something else, something metallic. I backed away, closed the door, and called the landlord again. This time, he picked up. I told him someone was in 1B. He sighed, then said, "No one's supposed to be there?" "That's the problem," I said. "I'll check it out," he mumbled, and hung up. That night, I stayed at a friend's place. I didn't want to be there alone. When I came back the next day, everything was as I'd left it, except for one thing. The peephole on my apartment door had been pushed out from the inside. It sat on the floor in front of the door like a coin someone had dropped. Now, every time I walk down that hallway, I feel it. Not someone watching, someone waiting. I moved out 2 weeks later, found a place across town. No upstairs neighbors, no downstairs units. It's just 4 walls and quiet. But sometimes, late at night, I lie on the floor just to check. And every once in a while, I hear footsteps. Not in my building, in my walls.